call the October 11th Maumelle Civil Service Commission meeting to order. I'll ask for any public comments if it's not on an agenda item. And then under old business, we have the approval of the September 13th, 2021 meeting minutes, which you should have a copy of in front of you. I'll give you a second, entertain a motion. Somebody, anybody?
I'll move approval.
Have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Before we get started on our next item, I just want to remind everybody, Commissioner Norton, I know you've got a conflict, but I wanted to remind everyone that we do have an appeal coming up, unless something's changed that I don't know about, on November 18th. That's at 1 o'clock, and that will be right here in this room. And I will probably catch up with you to sort of review some things again before we get there, my legal counsel. All right, under new business, the fire department wants to discuss some changes to promotional testing. Yes, sir. Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Division Chief Michael Cossey.
Yes, sir.
So, as we're kind of getting ready, it's got kind of a simple deal here. We think of it is anyway.
Thanks, sir.
And so, in looking at the assessments, the practical tests, and evaluations in the civil service rules, currently for division chief and captain, it lists as a personnel assessment. And historically, that's what we've done. You have the textbook problem employee. They bring somebody in, we usually borrow somebody from the police department. They come in, they're the bad employee, and our person counsels them. So, of course, the idea behind our assessments is to test people on some real world, type situations that they're going to encounter whenever in that position they're promoted for. And certainly the problem employee or a personnel issue in general is part of that. However, that's just a small part. And so what we'd like to do is just amend our captains and chiefs assessments to be an administrative assessment. That just gives us the opportunity, if in the future we want to do some things that aren't personnel related, as far as like an inbox assessment or something where we're prioritizing our daily tasks, assigning duties to other people, stuff like that. Nothing crazy, just give us a little bit more freedom in the future so that it's not just one aspect of that job. The other change that we're asking for is with our fire lieutenant. And so with the lieutenant, when they promote, they become the person that's in charge of the apparatus. And in a perfect world where we had perfect staffing, they would be the driver and the person who pumps the apparatus. And they are that plenty of times. However, due to staffing, our lieutenants probably spend, and it depends on the shift, but at least 15%, if not more, of their time sitting as the officer, where they're in charge of that fire company. They're not driving. It's a junior person that's driving up. And so they're riding the seat as the captain of the engine. Therefore, when they arrive at that fire or that incident, they are in charge for a period of time until relieved by a higher person. On our single company incidents, where only one engine goes, that lieutenant is in charge of that scene the entire time. And that's not reflected in our testing whatsoever. So all we're asking is that we add that to our assessment so that we can, that's an important part of their duty, and we want to be able to assess that for people that are promoting to lieutenant. And then we just propose an even split 20-20-20 for those. So
Division Chief, who would be doing these assessments, like, with your proposed changes?
It would be the same as we always have done. We will, within the department, then and right now, currently, the way it's been is that myself and Chief Ezell determine how we're gonna assess. We bring in outside people from other departments, and they are the ones, when we give them criteria, on performance, then they are the ones that score everybody, so that we get some objective viewpoints.
You would still be bringing in outside assessors?
Absolutely.
For certain things?
For all of this, that's the plan.
So in your written assessments, is personnel covered pretty well in the written assessment?
For our written assessments, it is our assigned reading list that we put out every year, which are from our textbooks, and it is our department SOPs. So there are some personnel aspects in there, there's a little bit of everything.
You said this would broaden the amount of issues you could raise in the assessment. For our lieutenants, it adds a dimension, but it's very specific. So it does increase it, but it's a very specific criteria. What we're looking for to assess here is really, for example, for our tactical assessments for our captains or our chief level people. So we bring them in because they may be in charge of an incident for the duration. Then we're going to run some scenarios, or we're running a simulated incident, and it's going to be apartment complexes, it's going to be hotels, it's going to be large scale, things with some issues. For our lieutenants, it's going to be a much smaller scope, and they're going to show up. They're going to be in charge for like 5 minutes, figure out what needs to happen, and kind of give that direction, and then we're done. So it's not going to be. So yes, it's an added dimension, but it's not, unlimited. Well, so I think to the lieutenant, is that why you're calling it command assessment for the lieutenant?
Correct, yes.
And that's what you just described?
Yes.
Okay, the scene. Yes. But for the captain and division chief,
the
administrative is broader than personnel, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So
but
you can assess on more issues than just...
Absolutely. Things that are job related. And none of this is a surprise. Anything that we're going to assess our people on, they're going to have an idea of that. In the past, historically, it's been like, well, you're going to have an assessment center. And then you showed up and you're like, hey, surprise. And here lately, what we've tried to do even is go through, we've offered it so that people that are promoting can actually come through and run, not with the personnel, but with the fireground. They've been able to run a mock assessment even. So, because we want people to be prepared and
that was
be
my
better.
Last question. Are the applicants for those two positions already expected to have those skills, those organizational things you described earlier?
They will have to have them if they promote, okay. So that we want to be able to assess if they have them now. So. Yeah, they have to have them day one.
So the way I understand this, the two positions that are most likely to be on scene, in command for the longest period of time versus a fire lieutenant, you're just trying to broaden your assessment ability of their abilities to handle that.
Absolutely.
That's the way I see this.
Because anytime our division chief that's on shift or one of the three captains that are assigned each day is off, then at least one lieutenant has to bump up. Right. And so in that situation, then, yeah, I mean, he's the first one to show up, then that's the, or she, and then, yeah, they're in charge until somebody, arrives.
Mm-hmm. Additional questions or observations?
Is this a change in our policy?
That's what I was going to ask Madam City Attorney, if we considered doing this.
This is in our rules, our Civil Service Commission rules.
So we would not have to, would we have to advertise this or not?
Yeah, we would have to do a full amendment, just like we've done before to the Civil Service rules.
Gotcha.
So we would have to do that.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Draft it up and on our format and do the hearing.
Any additional questions? Let's do this then, since we have to do that anyway, and we have to put that notice out there, let's plan on doing that, and we will address this at our November meeting.
Sounds good.
And that'll give everybody any time to think about anything else that may come to mind between now and then.
And I guess I would like a better understanding of administrative assessment.
Okay.
What that could entail.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I would say that one of the textbook type assessment centers that you'll see in promotion is, what they call an inbox exercise. And so it's to simulate, you show up at work and here's your 8 issues of the day. Where do these issues go? What are their importance? You know, what it should be the top priority, what should not be. Is there something that should go to a different department, a different division within the same department? And so your job is to prioritize these things. So that's a textbook thing. I've been a part of assessment centers at other departments where we covered, you know, some basic stuff like documentation. And so not only do you have to maybe discipline somebody or carry out some function like that, but you have to document it. And so, you know, whatever records are involved for the city or the department, but also to your supervisors and to your subordinates. And so anything of that nature is kind of what we're, you know, considering or having, when we want to have the option in the future, because that is such a part of our, especially chief level. Fortunately, every day is not a problem employee. So,
Right.
that's
Any additional questions or observations for tonight? Because we will come back and revisit this at our November meeting, at which time we will take a vote, but that will give us an opportunity to handle our notification
Absolutely.
requirements. Anything else? All
Chief,
right.
if we do this in November, will that give you enough time to implement this for January testing?
Absolutely, because for our January testing, we don't foresee any significant changes for captain and for our division chief and for our lieutenant. Then preparing them for that initial incident command is already something we've kind of got on the books. So to have them prepared for that, regardless of if it's in the testing or not.
Any other comments from anyone in the audience up here, anywhere else? Yes, sir.
Patrick McIntyre, I'm the president of the Firefighters Union here in Maumelle. And as this is presented to us at this time, we would like to hold off until the spring. And since this cycle has already been announced to us for our reading material, we're kind of used to what's going on. The broad spectrum of it, a lot of my peers have asked me to see if we could put this off to give us time to actually train on more of these issues, because we're all used to the personnel, we're used to the problem employee, and so that we can get some of the questions answered. You know, the subjectiveness of the inbox, outbox is one of the big issues that's been thrown at me.
We are in October. This would start basically in January. We're not even talking about approving it until potentially November. Battalion Chief, would you like to respond to that?
Just that, like, as I said previously, we don't foresee any changes for our chief and captain level testing for the January, and this goes into February for our practicals. So it should really not be any different than what people have already expected. Also, these tests we give grading criteria for our assessors, and so they have a grading scale, and each of those points assigned is it's not subjective. It's based upon, do they meet, you know, these objectives. And so none of our testing is subjective, in that, you know, that when they give the points, it's because they believe that this person has met this assigned objective in carrying this out. And so any testing that we did moving forward would be the same way. And in our last year with our lieutenants, we only had one, unfortunately, pass the written test. And so we did a mock fireground simulation, what we are expecting, what we want to do with our people moving forward. And we actually did it with him. So we already have the study material. We're going to give them an SOP that they have to follow, so they're going to know exactly going into it. And we're going to do some test simulations and
and which is what we did with Lieutenant Breeding last year. And so we've already kind of tested it. We've got all the material ready to go. And if you guys, you know, are gonna have the hearing next month, I'm prepared, like I say, to put this out to everybody that might test for lieutenant tomorrow. And so regardless of your guys' decision, then they'll have October, November, December, January to prepare, which is plenty of time.
What I'm hearing is not a difference of opinion on whether this broadened testing might be appropriate. What I'm hearing is a difference in opinion on when we should implement it, assuming we do implement it. We haven't had that vote yet. It seems like what I'm hearing from, and I'll just use administration for lack of a better word, fire department administration, they want to go ahead and push this through for this round of testing, whereas the rank and file fire officers would prefer to wait until the next round. Did I summarize that?
Yes, sir.
Fairly correctly?
When is the next round of testing, Mr. Chairman?
It would be another year.
2023.
Thank you. To the point about the inbox, outbox, is that something that's in the materials currently? Is that something that's in any materials ever? Would that be new materials, or how is that assessed?
That would be a new assessment that we've never done, but like I say, that is why the original goal was to let's adapt this lieutenant testing, and we've had discussions. Myself and Chief Ezell have had discussions about broadening the captain and division chief, and so if you guys are going to have a hearing to make this one decision, well, let's go ahead and our idea was let's go ahead and include this as well. But right now we do not have any material to make a change for that January, February promotional testing in, 2022. And so we don't foresee that being a change then. It would be something moving forward. But we're like, let's put this in together so that we give plenty of people notice. And as far as the notice goes, I know that in previous years, we've had years where we didn't issue a reading list for the study material until November, which I don't recommend. It's not a good idea. But we're ahead of the schedule in some of our previous years. So.
Well, that was my question. Have the officers had the opportunity to be trained on some of these things you might be testing on?
They have, and they are also, the current officers are performing these duties already without having been tested, previously as far as assessments go. And so that's what.
Whatever you would decide to test on, you would provide reading materials in advance for all those that might be tested.
Absolutely, and I'd be more than happy to send you guys what we give them. As I said, we did a sort of a test run. That was the perk of having one person that passed last year, is that the practicals didn't count. And so we're like, hey, let's have a practical with this guy. Let's run him through run him through a scenario. And so we did. We gave him a policy on what to do when you arrive on scene. What are your priorities? What are your responsibilities? And so he had that to study with. We, had opportunities to do practice runs, and then we actually did one, and we're able to give him some feedback. So yeah, all of that is ready to go and be move forward.
Forgive my ignorance. You've referenced the hearing next month twice. Is this in any way related to part of the issues that are going to be on appeal?
No, but to have a heering, public hearing to make the amendment to the rules.
Oh, that hearing.
Yes.
My knowledge. Yeah.
Completely.
I'm not involved, so I just wanted to make sure.
No, completely unrelated.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess our first thing we need to decide is not whether we're going to approve this change. This is kind of convoluted, because to even vote on that, we would have to have public notice. I guess our priority here tonight is, if we were going to approve this change, would it apply to this round, upcoming round of promotional testing, or a year from now? And we've got a difference of opinion on that within the fire department.
Would the notice that goes out, will we have the revised language in our rules to review as part of that?
Yes.
So it'll be, we did one not too terribly long ago.
Right.
It'll spell out, this is the part of our rules that
I think
currently
we
exists, and this is how.
We squabbled over some of the wording, and squabble in a good way, but trying to get it
Well,
refined right,
I mean,
correct?
literally, it would be pretty
What
much
this is.
this,
But-
unless and then you guys, because I'm gonna start out with what their request is, and then you guys can, move to amend to your preference. So if you wanna change part of it, but not the other part of it, just,
So,
move to make
If
that
there is an
amendment.
amendment, it would then push the vote to December?
Not necessarily.
You don't
I
have
mean,
to
it
give
would
notice
just
for
be the
that?
standard parliamentary procedure, so, I mean, you can always move to amend.
Okay.
If you make it through this round and you are promoted, day one, you are expected to have administrative capabilities.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you want those questions now? In this part of the test, as a candidate, wouldn't you want that assessment now?
Oh, I would love to have it, but it is the ability to, I can't say that in sitting here that I can have the people have enough time to have them prepared for that. And so that's
But they're all gonna be in the same boat.
that is absolutely the case. And so it not happening though is I want to make sure that everybody has a fair shot and and we put out a good product in preparing too. We want to be beneficial for everybody.
Well, you want them to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, we want people to succeed.
All right, the more I think about this, I was trying to make this an either or at our next meeting. I don't know that it has to be. We could go ahead and do the public notice as required and approve this, potentially, theoretically. We haven't voted on it yet. And at that point, say, this will apply to the 2022 round or the 2023.
I think we could vote for whatever effective date we wanted.
Yeah.
That's actually mentioned in the rules. I'm looking at the effective date of these rules and regulations shall be after a public hearing and upon the adoption of the same by the Civil Service Commission, said date shall be affixed hereinafter. So, yeah, you can make a separate date determination.
So we could go ahead and proceed on this, put out the notice, have our vote, and at that point, decide we're gonna implement this for 2022 cycle or the 2023 cycle. Does anybody have an objection with doing it that way?
Makes sense to me.
Madam HR?
What if we have a second test in 2022? We'll have a January test for sure, but what if we have one later in the year if there's a need for another test? So could we make it mid-year, effective maybe July?
You're saying theoretically it's possible that we would have to have another promotion testing before a year
Passes, correct?
past the, yeah. Yeah, I don't know why we couldn't do that. I mean, that's just giving you some flexibility if you need it, but if you don't need it, it would automatically go to the 2023 cycle anyway. So, yeah, keep that thought for when we circle back around to this. But yeah, I don't think that would be I don't see that as being an issue. Does anyone else?
Is that a heavy administrative task for the chief and the battalion chief? I don't know. To do the second round of testing?
I would.
Well, we wouldn't do that unless it was absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. The likelihood of that occurring would take I dare say a catastrophic situation to require that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because currently we have no known vacancies, so we'd have to have multiple vacancies probably, and then not have multiple people pass. So.
Wouldn't it be better to be safe than sorry?
Oh, I mean, always, but in 19 years, that would be a brand new event.
Better knock on wood.
And so that's, veneer or whatever we got here, but
I
yes.
don't expect it, but if it did occur, what you're suggesting would get us out of that little problem. Yeah.
And if it makes, you know, and if it's a possibility for you guys and it makes it more palatable for you guys, then, it would be fine with us. If we wanna push the chief and the captain, which, you know, we're on the record as saying that is not 100% ready to go. We wanna push that back and go with this lieutenant, which absolutely is ready and has been ready for a year and is ready to push out to these guys, then, you know, for this cycle, then we definitely support that, if that makes it more palatable for you guys, so.
Okay, so now you're theoretically separating out division chief, fire captain from lieutenant
If that's.
to,
Well, they,
Just an alternative.
as an
Absolutely.
alternative.
Okay, so Mr. McNamara, you have a problem with that?
McIntyre.
McIntyre, sorry.
Come on up.
I'm hard of hearing, so I write down what I hear.
To be honest, I mean, I personally I don't see that being an issue done that way. I do feel like that the upper end of rank and file could use more training on some of the possibilities that could be thrown at us than the lower end. That's not to make one rank better than the other. I just think that could, you know, like Chief Cossey said, we all want to succeed. And that's just, we all want the material so we can succeed.
Let's go ahead and plan then on putting out whatever public notice we need to. We will talk about this again there's a reason to get the meeting in November. Talk about this again in November. If we decide to move forward with this, at that point, we can decide when we want to see it implemented.
And
That'll
which
give
rank
you-
to implement it upon.
That'll give you a month to ponder that if you need it.
but we're still gonna have it posted
Yes.
for the November.
Yes.
To me, this, especially the fire lieutenant chief, you're trying to prevent a firefighter who 1 week is a firefighter, the next week he's promoted to lieutenant, and that week he could also be the captain on the phone.
Yes, sir, and unfortunately, we have had a situation where a person is a firefighter on Wednesday, and on Saturday is the captain. Is, you know, and so is in charge of that whole thing, and so that's, yeah, we wanna address that, that's very important to us.
Along the lines of what I'm talking about doing, do you have any problem with us keeping all three positions together?
You guys can do as you see fit, for what you deem best.
Any additional comments on that? We will, if I don't hear any, we will send out whatever notices are required. We will talk about this again and have a vote in our November meeting, and at that point, we'll put an effective date on it.
I just wanna make sure procedurally,
Yeah.
if we post the notice for all three to be effective at whatever date, and we get to the November meeting and for whatever reason, we decide to make it applicable to just the lieutenant or to the lieutenant and captain or all, you know, if we make a change, that won't have any impact on the notice requirement. That's what I'm,
So the notice requirement will be in reference to a particular amendment. If we then amend it at that meeting, we can do that. As far as having them become effective on different dates, that just creates a little bit of a problem for when there's drafting and you're adopting those rules. It's like we would have to do like 2 separate adoption dates. That probably would not be my preference. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's just more complicated than is probably necessary.
so we would have to amend essentially the rules twice.
You'd have to adopt the 2 different amendments separately.
Are you wanting to break fire lieutenant out from the other 2 and look at that issue separately?
Well, that's what I'm hearing you were saying, you know.
It was thrown out as an alternative for making it more palatable, and
Right.
if it appeases some of the concerns of the union and is workable, I think that sounds like a middle road approach to me. But I also understand the hassles of doing it twice, and
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement this is not a bad change, at least I shouldn't have said it that way. We're all considering whether this is a bad change, and we can vote on that, you know, in November.
But we haven't made up our mind when it's a good change.
I think what would be more normal is to say, pick a date that it's gonna be, that the amendment overall is gonna be effective, say, 4 months out, 6 months out, whatever that date's gonna be, that you're going to affix to the amendment overall, and it becomes effective on that date.
And it complicates it to have two different
If you have two
levels.
different dates,
Yeah.
then you're gonna have to,
I understand.
yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard was that the command assessment was ready to go, and you'd like to implement it
Yes,
for
ma'am.
the next round, but the administrative assessment is not necessarily
Correct.
ready
It-
on the other two.
Correct, and we perhaps erroneously made the idea that hey, we'll put them together and make it easy for you guys. We may have messed up on that. Not our intent, I assure you, all right?
Would you like to consider the lieutenant question separately? We can do that.
I mean, I think that we've been on the record with one's ready to go, one can use some more fine tuning. That does indicate a rational basis to do so to me.
We can do it that way. That's not, I don't
I'm just 1 of 5 though.
see an issue with that. I mean, I will entertain any observations or discussion.
So would that mean that the amendment that you would direct me to prepare for consideration next month would be only on fire lieutenant, and then we'll wait and consider the division chief and fire captain criteria at a later time?
Could we
I would
could we
understand.
have 2 proposals?
Yeah, that's what I was
With different
thinking.
effective dates? Would that be easier? A separate notice for the first with an effective date of immediate, and a change to the administrative assessment for the 2 higher positions with a later effective date, is what I was envisioning. Again, if we vote to pass this at all.
The way I understand it, Chief, is, on the administrative assessment, isn't this some of the jobs they're already doing? Administrative?
Absolutely. Any assessment that we perform at any time is gonna be directly related to the responsibilities of that position. So,
But like the division chief, administrative assistant, that would be a captain testing for that, but.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
He's already doing some of those tasks,
yes, sir, yes.
so we're not creating something new.
No, you're exactly right. It's maybe a lesser issue, but absolutely already doing those things. The one concern for us is that, that's why it goes back to that lieutenant, because we have somebody who's not in any command experience, and poof, there they are.
Yeah.
And so, but with our captain, he's already doing he's got a company to manage
Yeah.
every day.
I see the change, because, when we're testing now for personnel issues, and there's a lot more to the job than personnel issues,
Sure.
administrative.
In our notice to the public, do we have to, at this point, put an effective date?
I'll just have to look at what we've done in prior revisions. I don't know that I don't think we've put the effective dates in them. Just that it would be a hearing and that would be the change.
Right. I don't recall us doing that. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I don't remember that. Yes.
The other thing that I heard that concerns me is that the reading materials for the testing this year have already been published, but not necessarily what could be included in the administrative testing for the first 2.
Correct, and in comparison to our practice in the past, and so the reading list goes out, and so those are textbooks, so they have, 2 or 3 months to look over that. We want to expand that in the future even more, but for our assessments, oftentimes historically, you've gotten nothing. You've been told an assessment, once you pass the test, then you need to show up on this day, and there's gonna be a fire ground, and there's gonna be a personnel, and that's the extent, so,
Understand. What I also
Some of my constituents have expressed that concern to me, yes.
I just wanna make sure I was understanding it right.
Any additional comments? Then I am going to ask HR or whoever prepares these, public notices, maybe Madam City Attorney, I don't remember.
So I'm looking at the last memorandum I found it online. It does have an adoption date in an adoption clause in the memorandum where I prepare the amendment that goes out. So, yeah, we would just have to, like, it'll say revised and adopted at the blank meeting of the Maumelle Civil Service Commission. So we would just have to do two separate memorandi, and I do need some guidance on if we're gonna advertise it this way, which I think we should, when do you want me to put the effective dates for the two separate provisions?
I think what I'm hearing, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, is for fire lieutenant, I think what I'm hearing is that you would want that to be effective immediately.
Okay.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. For our fire division chief and fire captain, I don't have that impression.
Correct, that's my understanding. Or maybe next July 1 or something.
So we could put a July 1, 2022 date on that, effective date. That would cover if catastrophe happened, even though it hadn't happened, doesn't mean it can't. That would give HR the flexibility to do what they need to do on testing. And if catastrophe does not happen, then it would just go to the 2023 testing cycle for division chief and captain. That's the way y'all understand it. That's what I'm thinking.
I don't think we're all in agreement on that.
Patrick, can you confirm that?
Yes.
So the July 1 is is that what I'm hearing or not? For the second part?
It's
Right.
just hard to do without us being able to vote on it yet, to know what
Yeah.
we're gonna do.
Yeah, I know.
So, because I'm sitting here thinking, if it passes, 3-2, then they both could go into effect immediately, or 4-1, or whatever it's gonna be, or 5-0. I haven't made up my mind yet by any means.
Well, I will do them separately, and I will put them both effective immediately, and then that can be amended at the meeting, if that's by motion,
I
if
think
that's what you
that'll-
decide
I
to
think-
do.
That works for me.
I think that's the most flexibility we can have, right
And all
there.
we have to really post is the change, not the date. And we can change the date.
Well, it will be in the notice, but it can still be amended.
Okay.
We can amend the date, yeah.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney.
Surely.
Division chief, I know y'all were trying to make it simple, but I'm not sure we got there, but.
I'll never do that again, I promise.
All right, is everybody happy with that? We'll probably have to go through about half of this again to remember what we talked about in November, but, that's part of the deal. All right. Any more discussion on that particular topic? All right. Any additional comments?
Can we look at the notes from our last meeting again? I know
Sure.
you're looking at it. The date at the top is wrong. The old business looks wrong.
Yes.
June 14th minutes will be approved in the July meeting. Am I looking at the wrong one?
you looking at the one that says September 13th, 2021?
Looking at the one that was handed to me.
I'm seeing approval of June 14th and 28th meeting minutes for the one dated September 13th.
I got handed another June copy.
Okay, that's
Okay.
where your confusion is coming from. All right. Any additional comments, perspectives?
Is the next meeting November 15th?
Eight, didn't it? I got the eight,
8th?
I think, unless I got the wrong calendar.
I think you're right, because our meeting, our council meeting is on the 1st.
That is.
And it would be the 8th, yeah. That's the only time we have a meeting on the 8th, is when the council meeting's on the 1st.
And the appeal's the 18th.
Correct, at 1 o'clock right here.
Yep.
All right.
And I do not need to attend,
Pardon me?
do I need to attend and recuse on the record, or has that been satisfied?
I think since you've provided written notice of your recusal, I don't believe you'll need to attend to formally recuse.
I wasn't planning to, so let me know if I do.
Okay.
All right, any additional comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion to adjourn, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes, any opposed, no. We are adjourned.